During my first week of F1, I was asked to see a sick patient and I needed to get advice from the medical registrar. I literally just picked up the phone. So the medical registrar will ask me,
"Can you tell me what the recent observation is? What did the scan results show? Can you read out the report to me? And what is the patient's urine output?"
And I'll be like, you know, I'll just be looking stupid. Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Dr. Tosin and I'm a GP trainee based in London. I do videos on medicine and lifestyle. So I know that a lot of you guys are starting F1 soon in August, and I wanted to come on here and do my top 10 tips of getting through F1 training. So you might see me looking down on my phone. This is because I have written down some notes so I don't miss anything out, so please bear with me. So my first tip is to look after yourself. So when I first started F1 training, I was just so focused on getting my jobs done and finishing on time. And the funny thing is, most of the time I didn't finish on time. And it got to a point where one of my SHOs had to literally pull me out of the ward and take me to the canteen and force me to take my break. And from then I just realized how important having that rest is. I think it's just important to make sure you take your break and also make sure you look after yourself when you are in F1. It can be very stressful and it can be very easy to just neglect yourself because you're just so busy doing other things. So my second tip is to know how to prioritize your jobs. So what do I mean by this? When I was at F1 training, I used to leave certain things to last minute. I would check my bloods at 4:30. I would start checking scans later on in the evening. And then sometimes things just happen in the afternoons that you weren't expecting, and then you just finish work late. So what I would say is, for example, blood test. I would request the test the day before, and then in the morning I would check that the phlebotomist has bled the patient. Sometimes they can't bleed the patient and they'll leave a little slip for you. This lets you know that you need to go and do it, and then you can get it done quickly so that the blood test arrives on time. Other things I would say is scans. If you go on a ward round with your consultant and they say this patient needs an ultrasound scan or a CT scan, as soon as you get that free time, just quickly request those scans. Sometimes you might need to even talk to the radiologist to vet the scan. As soon as you do this, the sooner the scan can be done, the quicker you get the results. So it's just important you get those kind of things done very quickly so it doesn't cause any delay to your day and any delay to the patient care. What I would also say is make sure you start checking blood tests early, so don't leave it to last minute. Start checking it around 3:30. This gives you enough time to deal with anything which pop up. So let's say X patient has high potassium, another patient has high sodium, another patient has raised inflammatory markers. You can't leave these things, you have to deal with them. And the sooner you start checking blood tests, the earlier you can deal with things, and you can reduce the amount of things you hand over to the on-call doctor. So learning how to prioritize your job is very important. Another thing to learn how to prioritize is EDNs. These are electronic discharge summaries. I know they can be a little bit boring and people tend to leave them as the last things to do, but I think it's important to try do them as soon as possible. Even if the patient has been on the ward for 1 day, 2 days, just write the discharge summary, and then when they need to get discharged, all you need to do is update discharge summary, do the TTOs, and that can be sent to the pharmacy. As you know, once you've completed the discharge summary, the pharmacy has to go through the medication and also has to dispense the medication, and this can take a lot of time. So in order to delay the patient from being discharged, which is not fair on the patient, and also block a bed because the patient wasn't able to be discharged, it's important that you try and do it as soon as possible. Obviously, if there's more urgent jobs to do, i.e. reviewing a sick patient, then that takes priority over the other things that I've spoken about. Is when you're reviewing the patient, make sure you use the ABCDE approach. I know you guys have been taught this endlessly in your 4th and 5th year, and it's important because it gives you a systematic approach when seeing patients. It ensures that you don't miss anything else, and it allows the patients to be managed adequately. Also, when you're documenting, document that way as well. Write it as ABCDE. This allows whoever's reading your notes to follow your trail of thoughts and allows them to see why you've made certain decisions and why you managed that patient in that way. So just use it. I use it all the time and I still find it very useful till today. My 5th tip is to be prepared when you're escalating to seniors. So I remember when I first started, during my first week of F1, I was asked to see a sick patient and I needed to get advice from the medical registrar. I literally just picked up the phone, started talking, and realized I didn't have all the information I needed. So the medical registrar will ask me, can you tell me what the recent observation is? What did the scan results show? Can you read out the report to me? And what is the patient's urine output? And I'll be like, you know, I'll just be looking stupid. So what I would say is get everything that you need ready. Get your patient notes, get the blood test on the screen, get all the CT scan report as well, get the observation chart, the stool chart, the urine output, get everything in front of you before you make that call. Because when you make that call and you have all the information at hand, it makes discussing that patient with the medical registrar a lot easier, and it ensures that you get the right advice over the phone. So just have those things in front of you ready when you're trying to refer the patient to any specialty, or you're trying to discuss it with a senior or a colleague. So my next tip is don't be afraid to ask for help. You've just started foundation training. People expect that there are things that you're not going to know, so people are more than happy to help you out in any way that they can in order to, you know, make sure that patients are safe and make sure that you are doing your job correctly. So don't be afraid to ask for help. Most of the nurses, the doctors, I'm sure you guys know already, are very friendly, and they would prefer you to ask rather than doing something that's wrong. Even till today, there are a lot of things that I don't know. I'm currently doing my A&E rotation, and there are things I'm still not familiarized with. So I'm constantly asking questions. I'm like, oh, can you please explain this a little bit further? Or I don't quite understand this, can you please tell me what you mean? You know, just make sure you ask questions and avoid things being missed or avoid you making any mistakes. Everyone is super nice and don't expect you to know every single thing, so make sure you ask for help. So my next tip is get to know your team. And when I say get to know your team, I mean make the nurses your best friends. So I don't care who your best friend is at home, who your best friend is at school, who your best friend is at church. When you get to the hospital, the nurses are your best friends. Some of the nurses have been there for donkey years. They've been there even before you were born. They know the in and outs of the hospital. They know how to navigate things. They're just very useful people, and it's important to just be friendly, try to help them as much as you can, because it just makes your life a lot easier when you start foundation training. So get befriending your nurses. My next tip is just to practice your clinical skills. When you first start, you'll be expected to do certain clinical skills such as blood tests, cannulas, ABGs, catheters. As with anything, the more you practice, the better you get. So just practice, practice, practice. If there is a time where you can't get a cannula in, don't beat yourself up about it. A lot of us have those days. It's okay. Just escalate to your senior house officer, or if you need to your registrar, and I promise you, you will get better. I remember when I first started my foundation training and I was asked to do an ABG. I missed the ABG, the first and second attempt, and you know, I just felt a bit deflated, and I had to get my SHO to teach me. But getting the SHO to show me how they did things was very useful, because then I was able to, even though I knew how to do the procedure, they gave me like little small tips which I wasn't aware of, which helped me along the way when I was doing other ABGs, and eventually I started to get really good at doing those clinical skills. So don't be afraid to ask for help. With time you will get better. It's just practice. With anything you do in life, the more you practice, the better you get. So my next tip is try not to hand over unnecessary jobs. So what do I mean by this? So let's say it's coming to the weekend, you're working on the ward and you need to hand over a few patients. Obviously, for those patients who are unwell and need to be reviewed on the weekend, then they need to go on the list. But there are certain jobs, for example, warfarin dosing, which does not need to necessarily be on the list. So what I would say is, let's say you've got a patient whose INR has been stable throughout the week, you've got a recent INR on Thursday and Friday, you could easily dose that warfarin for the weekend. Obviously, if there has been fluctuations in the INR and you don't know what's going to happen during the weekend, then you might need to put it on the list. But those things can be avoided. Why is it important? It just saves the on-call doctor a lot of hassle. You're going to have to do some on-call shifts, and sometimes you have a list of all these different jobs to do. You're getting bleeps from the ward about other jobs that you need to do, and it can be really stressful, and it saves them a lot of time and a lot of stress. So try not to put things on the list which you can do during the week. And then my other tip is, when you are getting handover, don't be afraid to ask questions. Let's say you got handed over to chase someone's troponin. So what I would say is, when the person is handing over, make sure you ask loads of questions. Ask them, so what if the troponin is raised? What do I do? Or let's say that they ask you to chase a CT scan. What if the CT scan shows this? What do I do? What is the next plan? How do I manage this patient? The reason is because when you're on call and you get those results and you go and review the patient, sometimes you just don't know what to do because some of these patients are very complicated. You normally don't get enough time to go through all their medical notes, and it can be a little bit challenging. So make sure you get all that information that you need during handover in order for you to be able to manage the patient effectively. So my other tip is to make sure that you get 3 main apps. I think I've been working as a doctor for the past 4 years, and I've been using these 3 main apps consistently. I can't think of any other app that I've used as much as these 3 apps. So the first one is Induction. So it's an app where all the hospital put their bleep numbers and also their extension numbers. So let's say you have to call biochemistry because you want to chase one of your patient's blood. Instead of having to go through a switchboard and listening to some funky music, waiting endlessly on the phone to get put through to the department, what you can do is you can just bring out your phone, go on Induction, check out the extension number and bleep it, and just go directly to the phone and call that department. It saves you a lot of time and it's very useful, so just use it. Another app that I use is the BNF. When you're a foundation trainee, I know when I first started, there was a lot of medication that I needed to check on the BNF, such as dosing, contraindications, if a patient had renal impairment, did I need to reduce the dose, or what was the adjustment needed for that medication that I needed to prescribe. So it was just very useful, and I found that having it on your phone is just a lot easier than having to look for a BNF, a paper copy of the BNF, or going on the computer to try to open up a BNF on the computer. So get the BNF, it's also very useful. And then the last app I would say to get is MicroGuide. I'm sure a lot of hospitals have an app for their antibiotics prescribing, and I'm sure you know that a lot of hospitals have protocols about what antibiotics to prescribe for certain conditions. Having the app on your phone means that you can just, like I said, go on your phone, open up the app. Let's say a patient presenting with pneumonia, you can just quickly look through what the protocol is and prescribe it for that patient. So make sure you get that. My last tip is to make sure that you keep on top of your Eportfolio. So you're going to have to do certain things such as CBDs, which are case-based discussion, where you discuss a patient with a colleague, a senior, and what they do is that they will fill out a form online and give you feedback on what you've done well, what you could have improved on, and then they send that off. Try and get those done very quickly. You also have mini kexes where you get one of your seniors to observe you doing a history, doing a procedure, and they can also fill out that form for you and do it online. What I would say is try and get it done as soon as possible. I did my Eportfolio along the way, but there were certain things that I left behind, and towards the end I found it really stressful because I had to do things very quickly. A lot of the things that you have to fill doesn't depend on you, it depends on other people replying to your tickets. So the sooner you can send the tickets, the sooner they can do it. And often most people don't do it the first time you've sent it. You have to remind them a couple of times before you get it done. So the sooner you can send those tickets out, the sooner you get your assessments done. And what I'm going to say finally is make sure that you enjoy FY1. It goes by so quickly. I literally blinked and it was over. So just make sure you enjoy it. It's a great year. You learn loads of different things. You meet some amazing people and colleagues. I know it can be stressful, but just make sure you enjoy as much as you can. So thank you so much for watching the video. I hope you guys really found these tips useful. If there's anything that I've missed out, please leave a comment down below and I'll reply to you guys as soon as possible. I really do hope you guys enjoy your F1 training, and if you haven't already, make sure you like the video and you also subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.